Schools, Dr. Padilla.
Thank you, Madam President, and good evening, everyone. I have several items, but I realize that Teresa Brown, I don't see her. And yeah, we'll come back. So I'll go to 3.3, and that is a resolution to authorize the board president to execute an affiliation agreement with the Newburgh Unity Armored Center.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please. Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Ms. Prokop? Yes. Mr. Stridiron? Yes. Ms. Santiago?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Levinson?
Yes.
Here's my suggestion. Would you like us to roll with board committees first and then come back to you?
Yeah, let's do that.
Thank you. So we're going to go to board committees. Personnel committee, Ms. Brokash?
Yes, we met last week, and you'll see several things that are on the docket tonight. It was very short, things that we discussed. And then we had building and grounds, and we discussed the upcoming things that we're going to be doing on vacation, and some of the things that are listed on the board tonight, as far as being on the agenda. That's about it.
Would you like to continue with buildings and grounds, please?
Building, I did. I combined them.
Okay, there you go. Mr. Howard isn't here to talk about policy, but could you want to roll? Oh, no, we'll hold off policy till next time. So can I continue with Mrs. Felice and then go on, or?
So Teresa's here. Hi, Teresa.
I never expected it to be early. I apologize.
It's okay.
I'm on a roll today.
So I want to just highlight that for the past 4 years, we have what's called the Superintendent Celebration of the Arts. And it's our attempt, thank you, it's our attempt to really highlight the phenomenal talent that we have across the district. And so what we do is around this time of year is that we engage our youngest scholars, or actually all of our scholars throughout elementary, middle, and high school, by doing a winter card contest. And we use the winning entries as invitations to the annual celebration of the arts. The past 4 years, we've highlighted dance, vocal music, and visual arts. This year's focus will be on instrumental music. And so what I'd like to do is ask Ms. Brown to come up to the podium and just talk a little bit more about these phenomenal entries that you will find in the hallway, and just highlight our winning entries. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, as you can see in the windows in the hallway, we have all of the submissions posted, and we have the winning entrants also posted, and they're in the process right now being printed into those invitations. It's great to see the students really come and use their own creativity, and to have the teachers support this initiative as well. We had 31 entrants this year, so quite a few, and we had it from grade 4 through grade 8. So it was a nice chunk of our district that participated. So what I would like to do also is thank the teachers that were involved. Ms. Claudine DeLago from Gardnertown, Ms. Catherine McCarthy from Heritage Middle School, Ms. Kylie Hubbard from Heritage Middle School, and Ms. Lyla Mills from Temple Hill Academy. And yes, we are going to make you come up and take a picture with them, so don't worry. So what I'll do is I'll call students' name if they're here, and you come on and get their certificate. And if they could, you have a picture opportunity, and I don't know which way you said you were in your face, but So our first group of people are from Gardnertown Leadership Academy. We have Isabella Rodriguez, Haley Alza, Giovanni Scardiello, Samantha Fagan, Sophia Cooperman, Ariella Robles, Madeline Bell, Derek Rizet, Sarah Cooper, Amy Ramirez, Carol William, Andrew Reese, Anna Forrester, Victor Martinez, and from Heritage Middle School, Iran Flannans, Mia Ramirez, Michaela McElhenney, Madonna Aaron, Zenia Reed, Amaya Villar, Jillian Brand, Fiona Ramirez, Angel Espinoza, Zamariah Whately, Diana Pancali, Andrea Santos, Jacqueline Ramos, Guadalupe Garcia, and Ian Alvarado. And if I could, please have the art educators come up as well. Ms. Catherine McCarthy, Ms. Kylie Hubbard, and Ms. Claudine Delego. Ms. Mills actually has broken her wrist, so she was not in school today. Let's give them all a big round of You might as well say. Our next recognition is for some musicians. The New York State Music Association has two recognitions, our area all-state recognition and our all-state recognition. While we had many students involved this year, we do have some students that were not able to be with us due to unforeseen circumstances. So at the end, the teachers will come up to accept the certificates in their honor and make sure that they do receive them. New York State is divided into 15 regional zones for the New York State School Music Association. These zones represent geographic areas within the state and also take into account the student population of these zones. As one of the opportunities to celebrate regional talent and achievements in music education, there is an annual area all-state music festival. Students demonstrate achievement as noted by their NYSSMA solo adjudications, as well as by the recommendations of their music educator, principal, and director. The following students represented our district in the regional festival on November 16th and 17th in Walk Hill, New York. Ada Johnston, Spencer Conti, Kelly Benedict, Rebecca Ferguson, and Matthew Levenstein. Let's keep it alive. You know what, thank you so much. We're going to wait because we'll just do you all at once. Okay. Our NISMA All-State recognition. In the spring of last year, 6,500 students from throughout New York State prepared for all-state evaluations in the hope of being selected. They too were required to be recommended by their music educator, principal, and director. In late August, approximately 900 students statewide were notified they were selected to participate in or serve as an alternate to the NISMA Conference All-State Music Groups. This year, 2 of our students recognized are products of the music education programs within the Newburgh and Large City School District. They, along with their music educators and accompanist, spent many hours preparing for a level 6 solo adjudication from a very specific repertoire list. The students performed for a certified state adjudicator and received scores ranging from 99 to 100. As a result of their amazing performance and history of NISMA solo performances, they will now spend countless hours preparing for the experience of a lifetime at the NISMA conference, which will be held this coming weekend, November 29th through December 2nd. Their parents, teachers, and peers will smile with pride as they represent the best of the best in New York State. And this year, we had 2 repeats, really. We had Spencer Conti, who was chosen as alternate for All-State Chorus, but we also had Rebecca Ferguson, and she will be going this weekend as our All-State representative in the band. Rebecca. So teachers, if you would like to, what am I going to do? Okay, well, let's say that too. Mr. Zudas, you can come up and take a picture too. Rebecca was actually the only bass trombone player chosen within the state. So she is the best in the state, and she's from Newburgh.
I know I sound like a broken record, but we have phenomenal talent in our district. Thank you for representing us. Madam President, that concludes my items.
Thank you, Dr. Leah. We're now at the section of the agenda for public discussion and comments on agenda items. Please refer to the regulations regarding discussion and comments that is posted next to the sign-in sheet. Mr. Clerk, do we have anybody signed up for agenda items? Would anybody like to speak on agenda items? If not, we're going to move on to our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, Elementary, Mrs. Felice.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. Madam Board President. I apologize for that. I have one item this evening, and it is item 5.1, the resolution to approve conference requests.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please. Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Prokop?
Yes.
Mr. Strittmatter? Ms. Santiago?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Johnston? Mr. Levenstein?
Yes.
Ms. Maneo?
Yes.
That concludes our items for elementary, Madam President.
Thank you, Mrs. Felice. We're going to move on to our Assistant Superintendent for Curriculum and Instruction, Secondary, Dr. Spindler.
Thank you, Madam President. I present items 6.1 and 6.2 as a consent agenda this evening.
Would any member like to separate out any of these items? If not, I'd like to entertain a motion, please. Questions or discussion? Yes, Mr. Levenstein.
Just in general terms, with the The material that we're purchasing through the Empire State Grant, and I believe that we're physically purchasing material, is it ours? Is it the district's? How does that work? I know we did drums, and there's drones, and there's all kinds of things. So do they become the property of the district?
Yes, they do.
Are there any other questions, Mr. Johnston?
Thank you. I didn't notice any in-person training in connection with the drones. I'm wondering who's going to be using these materials, and will there be some in-person training for this?
Yes, absolutely. So there's embedded in the contract is professional development provided by the teachers who applied for that position. So we are offering drones in all of our 6 through 12 buildings. The teachers who are appointed to those positions will receive the curriculum and the professional development, as well as the software and the drones themselves.
Just to follow, it seemed like the contract suggested that the training might be presented on a video. I was just wondering if there would be in-person training with the people from the company.
I'll have to confirm that. It was my understanding that it would be in person, but I will confirm and report that.
Are there any other questions or comments? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Ms. Santiago?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Johnston? Yes. Mr. Levinstein? Ms. Beneo?
Yes.
Ms. Prokop?
Yes.
Dr. Spindler.
That concludes my items of the evening.
Thank you, Dr. Spindler. We're going to move on to our Assistant Superintendent for Exceptional Learners, Mr. Baker.
Good evening, Madam President. I'm offering one item this evening on the consent agenda, 7.1.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please. Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clark.
Ms. Santiago?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Johnston? Yes. Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Ms. Beneo?
Yes.
Ms. Prokop?
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Thank you. That concludes my items.
Thank you, Mr. Bayer. We're going to move on to our Assistant Superintendent of Finance, Mr. Kern.
Thank you, Madam President, and good evening. Finance would like to offer items 8.1 through 8.7 as a consent agenda.
Would any member like to separate out any of these items? Yes?
I'd like to separate 8.7, please.
Any others? I'd like to entertain a motion on 8.1 through 8.6, please. Questions or discussion on those items? Yes, sir.
I have just a couple of questions about the donations. Is the donation from IBM for a specific purpose? And is there anyone who could just comment on the type of the cameras or what kind of cameras those would be?
The donation from IBM is for the P-TECH program. This is something that's been coming in every year. It just hasn't, we're following protocol to make sure that goes to the board. The cameras are for the, I believe for the television, for the TV Tech department at the, for the career and technical education for the visual arts subject. What type of cameras are, I really don't know, but they are pretty expensive cameras from what I've been told. About $9,000 for the 5 of them is the value.
Are there any other questions or discussion on these items? Roll call, Mr. Clark.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Ms. Beneo?
Yes.
Ms. Prokop? Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Ms. Santiago?
We're now going to move to item 8.7. I'd like to entertain a motion, please. Questions or discussion? Mr. Stridiron?
Would it be possible for the board to get copies of the full environmental forms that are being filled out by Clark Patterson? I believe it says 15 full environmental assessment forms, part 1, and preliminary documents. Is that possible to get that provided to the board?
Can you just do me a favor, because I'm
trying to just take note. Could you just say that request one more time?
The request is for the applications that are submitted by Clark Patterson. It's called an EAF. It's part one, it's 15, I think it says 15, I don't know if it's pages or maybe 15 copies. And the preliminary documents for the proposed action. I don't know if they have that in PDF form, just attach it to the Board of Ed Weekly, but it would be nice to look through what information they're putting in there as what they consider items that could pose environmental impact on the surrounding area.
Okay, thank you for that clarity, and we'll work to make that available to the board.
Are there any other questions on item 8.7? Mr. Johnston?
Could I ask just for a kind of a general clarification of kind of the stage or the process that this approves? I understand it's in connection with the environmental impact. Is this resolution what's required to actually authorize the work to go forward and begin with that? Or are we at some other stage? Just a clarification of the stage we're at with respect to the environmental impact.
This really identifies what are the potential areas of concern. It doesn't commit to any particular project, although it kind of scopes out what the maximum project might be.
Go ahead.
So is there follow-up work to be done? Does this kind of, is there a lot of work that will follow in order to accomplish completing the environmental impact?
The story will likely be told from those full environmental assessment forms, so that is important information for the board.
I guess just to kind of give you a little more clarity, when these forms are completed, is that kind of a final statement about the impact, or is that kind of something that might require further research or further spending to assess the impact?
This isn't final, this is along the way.
Yes, Mr. Strider?
What is the final product that will come out of this stage? Is there going to be a report that's provided to the community that's a public document, or will it be an internal document?
A public document, and then the board is going to take final action on the environmental issues.
Are there any other questions or comments on this item 8.7? If not, roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Ms. Prokop?
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Ms. Santiago?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Thank you, Madam President. That concludes the items for finance for this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Kern. We're going to move on to our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, Mr. McLemore.
Thank you, Madam President. On the Human Resources agenda, we have for your approval on tonight items 9.1 through 9.14.
Would any member like to separate out any of the items? I would like to separate out 9.11. Anybody else? If not, I'd like to entertain a motion on all but 9.11. Questions or discussion on everything except 9.11? Yes, sir?
Since most of these positions are created and paid for with it's federal funds, does that get taken into account in the upcoming budget? Or every year do we have to approve these positions as new positions starting July 1st?
Yeah, the pause is just making sure we're accurate with our information. We have several positions that are in federal funds that don't require an annual appointment. However, if there's a reduction in federal funds, there's a likelihood that we would have to make some key decisions as to how we're going to expense those title funds that could result in repurposing positions, like discontinuing certain positions. So I think if I'm understanding your question correctly, for the positions that are being considered that are assigned to a title account, those aren't positions that would annually need to be brought forward to the board.
So the people that are applying for these positions, they're only good until June 30th. Is that correct? And they have to reapply every...
Oh, that's a different question. Okay.
I just want to know, these positions, they're just temporary positions. They have to be re-upped every year. It's not like you're creating a new position in a budget. Well, that's even new, but I just want to know the status of these. These people are in kind of in limbo every year. We have to decide whether or not we can take these positions and move them someplace else. It's a moving part.
Yeah, so I think there are two different parts to that. One is the requirement to have individuals reapply annually. So that's been a conversation that has taken place at the board level and at committees as to whether or not the board wants to enact a process that requires individuals in sort of TOSA-like positions to reapply every year. And there's been a good conversation about that annually. Some pros and cons about it. However, as it pertains to, I think, your first question, they would not be in limbo if they're being hired for a position that's in one of the title accounts unless we decide to move in a different direction. But that's true for any position that we have in the district, whether it's coming out of general funds or a title account.
Go ahead, Mr. Stern.
So what I'm understanding is these positions that are being created right now, the intent is to continue the process next year. And it's an educational decision to, this is the way we're moving forward to address certain needs.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions on those items? If not, roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Levinstein? Yes. Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Ms. Prokop?
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Ms. Santiago? Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Johnston?
We're going to move on to 9.11. And because I asked you, I'd like to entertain a motion, please. Any questions or discussions? So I'm going to start it. I still am unclear about these two positions because of their title. Where are these two positions going to be working? And if this is because of a bubble in enrollment, didn't we know this in even last year at budget time? So shouldn't these have been budgeted?
These positions have been developed as district-wide positions to not only address concerns around enrollment in grade 1, but also academics. So we've looked at the most recent scoreboard coupled with the local assessment data that was recently received to make decisions. They would be at two particular schools. Do you want to know which ones? Bombville and GAMS. And split between two first grade classes at each school.
Are there any other questions or comments? Yes, sir.
So the intent is to help the teachers in those specific classrooms do what exactly?
Reduce class size and provide direct instruction to smaller groups.
Mr. Livingston.
So you had mentioned an enrollment bubble. Is there one for first grade, or is there a certain thing that there is this bubble that will be going forward?
So a few years ago, when we launched the Vision 2020 Way Forward, one of the things in there, specifically under equity and access, was the district adopting an approach to support the primary years. And so we've done a number of different things aligned to that particular indicator. One particular investment was hiring additional K teachers, and at that time, it's probably about 3 years ago, we hired 5 additional kindergarten teachers to reduce K class sizes. Naturally, as a result, unless you increase that many teachers for each of the subsequent grades, there would naturally be a bubble. But it's not as easy as saying, well, if we hired 5 K teachers, now we have to hire 5 first grade and second grade all the way through 5th grade. While on the surface that makes a lot of sense, it's not a reality for us because that would require 5, 10, 15, 20 additional classrooms. And we don't have 20 additional classrooms in order to hire that many teachers. So this in many ways is our attempt to take a look at the first grade class sizes, which we're constantly doing. So, you know, in some cases we have first grade classrooms that are 21, average of 21 kids in a class, upwards of 24, close to 25. We would like to see that reduced a little bit for first grade specifically, so that way we have this continuity of low class sizes in K and low class sizes in first grade. So these 2 additional teachers at these 2 schools will be full-time teachers. So they'll be in the class 100% of the time.
Mr. Walker, you have a question?
Yes, I do. What will be done at the end of the school year to evaluate the effectiveness of these intervention specialists or the program itself?
We will be looking at data throughout the year, not only at the end of the school year, but close to the end of the school year, we will be looking at reassignment if that is in fact necessary.
Mr. Stritter?
Just want to make sure that federal funds can be used for this exact job description.
Yeah, in Title I, there's an allowance to reduce class sizes in an effort to improve results, so yes.
Can we be assured that different co-teaching models will be given as professional development to the teachers, all the teachers that are involved with this, because that would be really helpful?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Stritter?
You're not really reducing the class size, though. You're just changing the student-teacher ratio.
Yeah, with 2 fully certified teachers.
So how many students are in those specific first grade, not saying exact numbers, but are they higher than the other first grade classes in the other schools?
In those 2 particular buildings, we will look at the first grade class that has the most students, coupled with the performance of first graders in those classes. So it doesn't reduce the class size per se, but it does reduce the teacher-student ratio in 4 classes.
So student-teacher ratio is approved for federal funds? Because this class size is totally different than student-teacher ratio. To me, you can have 2 teachers in a room, it definitely can work efficiently as a team. But the class size, if you have 30 first graders in a classroom, if you got 2 teachers in there, it's still going to be difficult. So I just want to make sure that we're not going to have a problem with federal funds with this.
Not to our knowledge, based on what we've read, what we submitted, this is on board.
Are there any other questions or comments? Mr. Walker?
I'm just wondering, will these specialists be, are they already working in the district, or will they be new hires?
These are 2 new positions, so we would have to advertise them as such, which means they would be open to anyone who is interested in applying to them.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on this item? Roll call on 9.11, Mr. Clerk?
Ms. Beneo?
Yes.
Ms. Prakash?
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Santiago?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
No.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Madam President, I'd like to request permission to add an item.
Mr. McElmore, can you tell us what the item is before we vote to add it?
Yes. Be it resolved that upon the recommendation of the superintendent of schools, the board hereby appoints Mrs. Marcia Sobel to the position of acting director of grants on a contract basis and authorizes the superintendent of schools and the board president to execute a contract in lieu of probation on the behalf of the district with Marcia Sobel, whereby she shall perform the services as acting director of grants in the district for the period commencing November 28th and terminating on or before June 30th, 2019.
I'd like to entertain a motion to add this resolution, please. Questions or discussion on adding, just on adding, not on the resolution? Roll call, Mr. Clerk?
Ms. Prakash?
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Ms. Santiago?
Yes.
Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Ms. Beneo?
Yes. So now I need another resolution. So I'd like to entertain a resolution, please. Now questions or discussion, Mr. Levinstein?
So in general terms, I've said this before, when we add a resolution and there are people in the audience that may want to speak to agenda items, that this particular item was not an agenda item and now is, and the purpose of that is for people that want to make comments before we vote. So I don't know if it's something we need to look at on a permanent basis. If we add a resolution, should we suspend the discussion to go back to public comment on agenda items? I have no idea if anyone wants to talk about it. I'm just saying this in general terms.
In general, Dr. Padilla and I try not to add any items, not to walk any items on. I think this is something that they need to have done. So I said that they can walk this on tonight, but usually, and I've tried to hold this to this for the last 4 years, we do not walk items on. But I understand your comment and I agree with it. Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Roll call, please.
Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
Ms. Santiago? Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Ms. Beneo?
Yes.
Ms. Prakash?
Yes.
That concludes my items, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McElmore. We're going to move on to the clerk of the board. Clerk of the board, Mr. McCarthy.
Thank you, Madam President. I have the approval of the minutes from November 13, 2018.
I'd like to entertain a motion, please. Questions or discussion? Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Santiago? Mr. Walker?
Yes.
Mr. Johnston?
Yes.
Mr. Levinstein?
Yes.
Ms. Beneo?
Yes.
Ms. Prakash?
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron?
Yes.
That concludes my items, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. McCoy. We are now at the portion of the agenda for public discussion on non-agenda items. Please refer to the procedure sheet next to the sign-in sheet. We do have 2 people signed up. One is Dr. Moy. Please.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dr. Syed Moin. I practice medicine in Newburgh and I live in Newburgh School District. My 3 kids went to Newburgh School District. And 2 of them are physicians and one is works at World Bank. So I'm thankful for Newburgh School District. I came on behalf of the Muslims in the area, and we are every year brought up to not to have our holidays recognized in the calendar of Newburgh School District. We would like to add 2 holidays that are very important to us in the calendar of Newburgh School District. That's all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Next, we have Mr. Leon Williams.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Leon Williams. I'm a resident of the city of Newburgh. And to piggyback on what was just spoken about the doctor here, we have a great diversity within the community. However, my family and my friends as well, there's no representation. As I took a quick look at the school calendar, there's currently 22 full days that are recognized for various religious or holidays, with 8.5 of those being half days, and not one is an acknowledgement of the Muslim community, my family or friends. We ask no difference between the Muslim community and any other observed religion within the community or any other person within the community. Just have acceptance and have those 2 dates added. They can be added merely by taking the half days, or one of the full days is given as a superintendent day, or take 2 of the half days to give us a consideration for that on behalf of the community, myself, and my family. It's just merely a proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anybody else like to address the board on non-agenda items? If not, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting. Roll call, Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Walker? Yes. Mr. Johnston? Yes. Mr. Levinstein? Yes. Ms. Mineo?
Yes.
Ms. Prokop?
Yes.
Mr. Stridiron? Yes. Ms. Santiago?
Thank you, and see you all in December.